Welcome once again to another video by me, El Medio del Norte, JK Reacts. Today's video is by a channel called Forgotten Player Profiles, and the video is titled Kendall Gill, the media dubbed him the next Michael Jordan. Personally growing up, especially with those early era 90s Sonics, Kendall Gill was a personal favorite player of mine. The man, I feel, is seriously undervalued. In preparing to do this video, I happened to reach out to Kendall Gill, and I asked him a couple questions, but enough of me trying to explain it. I'll get into it, or I'll let him get into it.
What's happening, JK Reacts? This is Kendall Gill, former Seattle Supersonic and 15-year NBA veteran. Hey, like your channel. It's pretty cool, my man. Also, I appreciate you being supportive throughout my Seattle Supersonic days. Appreciate you liking the ones and the twos, the point guards and the two guards that really have most of the skill level. But still, there were some great players back there in Seattle. Gary Payton, Sean Kemp, myself, Deadlift Shrimp, Sam Perkins, and all those guys. Had a very good team there when we won 63 wins. The reason why most kids from Chicago don't go to Illinois anymore is because Illinois does not recruit them, and that's the reason. So. Wish that it was reversed, but it doesn't happen anymore. All right. Take it easy, man, and good luck with your channel.
Yeah, when I asked him that question, because him, Nick Anderson, as well as a couple others from Chicago actually went to the University of Illinois and played basketball there. I didn't know if just the best talent wasn't being offered a scholarship or just felt that they would do better elsewhere. So I was just trying to get an in-depth answer, and sometimes the best answer is the most obvious one. In this case, it seems like. But with that being said, let's get into this video, and if you like this content, like, share, and subscribe. Thank you all for your time. Now let's enjoy.
6'5", 215 pounds, crazy athletic, and impeccable work ethic. This seems like the prototype for a Hall of Fame level shooting guard. But Kendall Gill would finish his 15-year career without even getting an all-star selection. His time spent in the league involved him flying under the radar and quickly being dismissed as the focal point of an offense when players more typical of that era came along. And when he spoke about his frustrations, he received the reputation of being a difficult player. It is worth mentioning that he came into an era that was still dominated by the big man. And even though he was receiving the unattainable label of the next Michael Jordan when he entered the league, Kendall Gill never reached that level. But the discrepancy between these expectations and his career accomplishments invalidate how good of a player he was when he was healthy and in a good situation.
Exactly.
So today, we're going to jog your memory and revisit the career of Kendall Gill. Kendall Gill attended Rich Central High School in Olympia Fields, Illinois. As a senior, Gill and the Olympians finished as runner-up for the boys AA IHSA tournament. Gill led the team in scoring throughout the 4 games of the tournament, averaging 13.5 points per game. Gill attended in-state University of Illinois to play for the Fighting Illini.
Real quick, when choosing which school to go to, he narrowed his choices down to 5 schools: Clemson, Iowa State, DePaul, Michigan State, and Illinois. Before he went to bed the night before selecting a school, nobody knew where his mind was at in his family. But in his mind, he was thinking Michigan State. Well, the very next morning, his brother asked him when Kendall was ironing his slacks, "Hey, what school are you going to go to?" And without hesitation, Kendall Gill said Illinois. He didn't put any thought into it or anything, and it was the first thought that came to his mind. And more often than not, those tend to be the best decisions. That way, you're not overthinking it or overcomplicating things. Well, after he said that to his brother, he called Coach Heathcote, Coach Williams, and Coach Izzo to decline Michigan State's offer and tell them where he was going. Instead of trying to encourage him and wish him well, they tried to persuade him by asking him questions like why he wanted to go to a loaded team already in the fighting Illinois, where he could possibly ride the bench. And the coaches also told him, well, if you come to Michigan State, you're an automatic starter. But for Kendall Gill's case, choosing Illinois was the best choice.
Gill did not start his freshman year, and as he explains it, he was not a very sought-after recruit compared to other teammates and freshmen. Gill would play in 31 games, but wouldn't start any of them, playing about 11 minutes per game, as the Illini went 23-8 and were upset by Austin Peay in the first round of the tournament. For his freshman season, Gill would average about 3.5 points, 1.5 rebounds, and 1 assist per game, and an impressive 1.3 steals. The 1988 season saw Gill receive a major role increase, as he played in 33 games, starting 23 of them, and was second on the team in minutes per game. The Illini also received a boost in the form of Nick Anderson and Kenny Battle, who both sat out the previous season, but were the team's top 2 scorers this season. The Illini had similar team success as they finished 23-10, and this time made it to the second round, where they would lose to Villanova. Gill would put up averages of about 10.5 points, 2 rebounds, and 4 assists, as well as 2 steals per game. 1989 produced one of the greatest seasons in program history, as Gill teamed with Anderson, Battle, Marcus Liberty, Steve Bardot, and Lowell Hamilton to form the Electric Flying Illini.
Sorry, I just realized something in that Sports Illustrated shot, and I want to go back and look at it. See that guy that I'm circling with my cursor, number 41? Glenn Rice, one of the best three-point shooters of his era in the NBA. I don't know. I thought it was pretty cool seeing that competition. All right, let's get back.
Teamed with Anderson, Battle, Marcus Liberty, Steve Bardot, and Lowell Hamilton to form the Electric Flying Illini. And Gill had improved for the 3rd straight year, as he was now 3rd on the team in scoring and averaged 5 more points than the previous season. The Illini played exciting, above-the-rim basketball to finish the season 31-5 and enter the tournament as a 1 seed. They would make a deep tournament run that would see them face eventual national champion Michigan in the Final Four. But after a hard-fought game, Michigan's Sean Higgins would hit a putback layup with 1 second left to give Michigan the win. Although it was a disappointing finish to the season, Gill still had a great season, as he averaged about 15.5 points, 3 rebounds, 4 assists, and 2.5 steals per game. Initially, Illinois had high hopes for the following season. Even though they had lost Battle due to graduation, Anderson had told the team that he would be back for his senior season. But on the very last day to declare for the draft, Anderson did just that, which dealt a major blow to the Illini offense. Gill and Liberty became the team's 2 main stars, and Gill once again improved, as he led the team in scoring as well as the Big Ten. He was also voted a consensus second-team All-American and first-team All-Big Ten for his efforts. The Illini took a step back as they finished just 21-8 before losing to Dayton in the first round. Gill had showed his all-around ability this season as he averaged 20 points, which was the highest average for an Illinois player since Rick Schmidt in 1975, as well as 5 rebounds and 3.5 assists, and for his 3rd straight season, averaging at least 2 steals per game. Gill improved each year of his college career and showed exceptional ability on both sides of the ball. The player that wasn't even interviewed by his hometown newspaper when he was a freshman was now a projected lottery pick going into the NBA draft. The upstart Charlotte Hornets, set to begin their 3rd season of existence, chose Gill with the 5th pick in the 1990 NBA draft. Similar to his time in Illinois, Gill had to pay his dues and earn his time on the court during his rookie season, as Charlotte already had a veteran backcourt consisting of Muggsy Bogues and Rex Chapman. But Gill played in all 82 games and even started 36.
Muggsy Bogues? one of the most fearless basketball players I know, especially for his height. And Rex Chapman was kind of a weird NBA player. He was definitely skilled, don't get me wrong, but he would have these hot and cold moments. He might score 40 in a game, and then the very next night, he would struggle to put up 10. So he was pretty streaky when it comes to that.
But Gill's addition wasn't nearly enough to make the Hornets competitive, as they finished 26-56 and missed the playoffs. However, Gill would put up a respectable 11 points, 3 rebounds, and 3.5 assists per game, which earned him a spot on the all-rookie first team. Gill also found himself participating in the 1991 dunk contest at All-Star Weekend, along with teammate Rex Chapman, but he would unfortunately finish last. The Hornets had added a crucial piece in their early success during the 1991 NBA draft in Larry Johnson out of UNLV.
Sorry, let's go back for a second.
Along with teammate Rex Chapman, but he would unfortunately finish last. The Hornets had added a crucial piece in their early success during the 1991 NBA.
Right here. Do you guys remember this guy? LJ? He would later go on to play with the Knicks for a little while. But if you're of a certain generation, you'll remember those grandmama commercials. It was him portraying his grandmother. Let's get back into this.
Draft in Larry Johnson out of UNLV. And the loss of Rex Chapman to Washington meant Gill would be the team's starting shooting guard. And Gill delivered, as he would up his scoring average by nearly 10 points and lead the team in scoring, while Johnson would win Rookie of the Year. The Hornets improved slightly at 31-51, but would still miss the playoffs. And for the regular season, Gill would average 20.5 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, and nearly 2 steals per game. The 1993 season started with another huge piece to the Hornets puzzle, as they had brought in rookie Alonzo Mourning to pair with Larry Johnson to create the best young frontcourt in the league. And it paid off, as both Johnson and Mourning averaged at least 21 points per game, and the team went 44-38 and made the playoffs, where they would beat the Celtics in 4 games to win the franchise's first ever playoff series.
This younger generation, they like to talk about how watered down the league was because of the expansion era. And I strongly refute that as a fan. It doesn't water down the league because of the expansion. Yes, initially there was the expansion draft where certain players on a team weren't protected, and certain players were. But what it also did is add more college talent to the league as well. If the expansion era was so weak and watered down, why were the Charlotte Hornets, Orlando Magic, and the Miami Heat already playoff contention teams several years into the league? Make it make sense, chat. If you have an opinion, let me know.
But they would go on to lose to the Knicks in the second round. Gill would play well in the Celtics series, averaging 19.5 points and 2 steals per game. But he struggled more in the Knicks series, as his averages dropped nearly 4 points, but he was still effective on the defensive end, as he averaged 2.6 steals per game. However, this season was marred by a contract dispute between Gill and the Hornets, as well as Gill reportedly becoming unhappy in Charlotte with the arrivals of Johnson and Mourning, resulting in feuds with teammates. And these issues were the beginnings of Gill developing a reputation of being difficult that would plague him for the next few years. And for the regular season, Gill would average about 17 points, 5 rebounds, and 4 assists per game. On August 27, 1993, Gill would get the contract he desired, but the Hornets did not have intention of keeping him, and instead signed him so that they could shop him, but still be able to keep the team intact if they didn't like their options. But the Hornets found an option that they liked, and traded Gill to the Seattle Supersonics on September 1st for picks and a couple role players. On paper,
this era of Sonics basketball through the 95-96 season was my favorite era of Sonics basketball. You could tell that they were building something there in Seattle to hopefully bring them to prominence.
For Sonics on September 1st for picks and a couple role players. On paper, Gill seemed like the missing piece to a team that was 1 win away from the Western Conference Finals the previous season. and boasted budding stars in Gary Payton and Sean Kemp, as well as adding deadlift strength to the team. The Sonics would have a great regular season, finishing at 63-19, and would enter the playoffs as the 1 seed in the West, where they would play the 8 seed Denver Nuggets. But after jumping out to a 2-0 series lead, the Sonics would drop the final 3 games and lose the series, marking the first time an 8 seed beat a 1 seed. Gill played a good...
Seeing this image of Dikembe Mutombo laying on the floor in joy, holding this basketball, one of the saddest moments in my fandom for the Seattle Sonics. Yeah, that brought back a lot of bad memories just seeing this image right now.
But after jumping out to a 2-0 series lead, the Sonics would drop the final 3 games and lose the series, marking the first time an 8 seed beat a 1 seed. Gill played a good series, but just wasn't a focal point in the offense, as he averaged just under 13.5 points and was 4th on the team in scoring for the series. And for the regular season, Gill would average about 14 points, 3.5 rebounds, and 3.5 assists per game.
Sorry to cut him off again. What this video fails to mention, this era of Sonics basketball, they had 6 players scoring in double figures, but it was hard for any of them to get 20 points or more because of all the talent, it seemed like, that was on that team. The weight would be distributed more evenly in a sense, rather than one person being the focal point of the offense. Like, an easy example, the Chicago Bulls during Michael Jordan's time. Jordan finished with a career average of 30.1 points per game, and that's including his 2 years in Washington. Meanwhile, as Scottie Pippen, when he was with the Bulls, he averaged around 17.5 points per game. See the discrepancy just in those stats? It wasn't like that with the Sonics.
Points, 3.5 rebounds, and 3.5 assists per game. The 1995 season would be much of the same for Gill and the Sonics, as the team finished near the top of the NBA with a 57-25 record and played the Lakers in the first round, where they would lose in 4 games. Gill would see himself in a much lesser role during the playoffs as he lost his starting spot to Nate McMillan and came off the bench, averaging under 6.5 points in 18 minutes per game. And for the regular season, Gill saw his scoring average dip for the 3rd season in a row, as he would average about 13.5 points, 4 rebounds, and 2.5 assists per game. This would be a tumultuous regular season for Gill, as he missed time with a bruised kidney and also took time off after becoming depressed, which he would later say was exhaustion. In April 1995, after going 4 nights without sleeping, George Karl was a big reason for Gill's mental and performance struggles during Gill's time in Seattle, as Gill reported that Karl deemed Gill unworthy of his contract and that Gill had demanded guaranteed playing time as part of the deal. Karl also apparently would take Gill out of the starting lineup right before games and call him a pretty boy in front of the team. And it even got to the point that Gill didn't want to play anymore and was hoping for injury so that he would sit out. So in late June, Gill was traded back to the Hornets for her.
Kendall Gill wasn't the only player Karl had an issue with during his coaching career. George Karl once described Carmelo Anthony as the best offensive player he ever coached, which is nice. But he also said Melo was a user of people and addicted to the spotlight and reluctant to play defense or lead. Things then came to a peak between the two in 2009 when Carmelo refused to sit during a timeout, which Karl deemed as quote-unquote crossing the line. George Karl labeled Kenyon Martin as one of the most insecure and immature players he ever coached. Karl said J.R. Smith had a huge sense of entitlement. So maybe George Karl just didn't like that entire Denver Nuggets team. But let's continue. George Karl's relationship with Ray Allen went south during Karl's time with the Bucks, due to Karl using the media to publicly critique players, which led Allen's trust in Carl to erode while he was with the Bucks. And if you guys thought Gill was the only Sonic to have issues with Carl, Gary Payton and Sean Kemp had issues with him as well. Gary Payton even said he wanted to unalive George Karl every other day. But let's get back to Mr. Gill. Some years after his time in Seattle, he apologized for his part in what happened during his time there, and he thought that the hatchet had been buried with George Karl. But then George Karl wrote a book calling Kendall Gill a bad teammate. But during this time together in Seattle, George Karl told Kendall Gill that he was too unselfish to be a superstar. So how can a player be unselfish, wanting to do what's best for the team, let other guys take the glory, and also be a bad teammate? Maybe you know the answers to that one, chat. A few years ago, during an interview on Truth and Media, Kendall Gill opened up about his depression while in Seattle. He used to suffer from cluster headaches from the time he was 10. And he used to have an episode every spring, summer, fall, and winter. And during each episode, he would have several episodes a day. His episodes got so bad to the point that he had to call the NBA Players Association and tell them that he hadn't slept for several days. The Players Association then told him that he was going to need to have rest and just take a break, essentially. And later on, he learned that depression could be a byproduct of those cluster headaches due to the debilitating, unpredictable, and severe pain that it causes. And in that same interview with Truth and Media, he said that he was reluctant at first to call it depression because of the stigma that men faced on a daily basis back then. Essentially, it boils down to this, and I'm still a victim of this at times in this day, 2026. Men back then, they should have been able or perceived to take on anything in the ways of the world. No matter what came to you, you were supposed to overcome it and just deal with it because essentially you're a man. You're supposed to be able to take the weight. Let's get back into this.
Didn't want to play anymore and was hoping for injury so that he would sit out. So in late June, Gill was traded back to the Hornets for Hersey Hawkins. An interesting story is that on January 26, 1995, the New York Daily News reported that there was a deal in place which would have sent Gill to the Blazers in return for their franchise superstar Clyde Drexler straight up. But the trade didn't happen, as according to Blazers GM Bob Whitsitt, no matter how hard he tried to sell the deal to Sonics GM Wally Walker, Walker still pulled out, as he didn't feel comfortable doing business with Whitsitt. As Whitsitt would reportedly say to Walker, "I'm trading the most popular player in the history of the franchise to the arch enemy, who is probably going to win the championship, and I'll probably be run out of town after year one. So you have no risk. You're still going to be great." Then finally, Wally just said, "I'm not comfortable making a deal with you, so I'll pass." Gill started the 1996 season in familiar territory, back where it all began. Gill would be back with former running mate Larry Johnson, but this time, instead of Alonzo Mourning, the team's other star would be Glenn Rice, who was acquired in a trade for Mourning days before the start of the season. Gill was a starter for the team, but Johnson and Rice got the majority of the shots, as Gill's scoring average with Charlotte dipped yet again, as he was reportedly unhappy with his role on the team. Fortunately for Gill, he was the main piece in a trade to the Nets that saw the Hornets receive Nets point guard Kenny Anderson. Gill only played in 11 games for the Nets this season, as he fractured his hand in a February 14th win versus Indiana. But during those 11 games, he had his highest scoring average since the 1992 season. The Nets would finish with a 30-52 record and miss the playoffs. And overall, for the 47 games that Gill played this season, he averaged 14 points, 5 rebounds, and a career high 5.5 assists per game. The Nets would start the season with the healthy Gill, rookie Kerry Kittles, and rebounding machine Jason Williams. But on February 13th, the Nets would add more firepower mid-season after a 14-34 start when they traded for Sam Cassell and Jim Jackson from the Mavericks. But it would be too little too late, as the Nets finished 26-56 and missed the playoffs. Gill would average a career-high 21.8 points to lead the team in scoring, while adding about 6 rebounds, 4 assists, and nearly 2 steals per game. Gill would also score a career-high 41 points on January 13th versus the Magic, and surprisingly, Gill did all of this playing out of position, as he was playing at small forward. But more important was that Gill was shedding the reputation that had been placed on him somewhat unfairly so early in his career, as he was reportedly mentoring the young players on the team, specifically taking rookie Kerry Kittles under his wing, while also earning the respect and liking of the veterans.
About the small forward position that Kendall Gill was playing because Kerry Kittles was now on the team. During the 90s, NBA small forwards typically measured between 6'6" and 6'9", with some players even being taller than that, like Tony Kukoc, who was 6'10". And the small forwards that were around Kendall Gill's size, they relied on their strength and speed over their height. The small forward position was prioritized for versatility in the 1990s that required them to be able to defend both the shooting guards and the power forwards as well.
He would also receive the ultimate compliments from his coach, as he was deemed easy to coach, would do whatever was asked of him, and was one of the hardest workers on the team. The 1998 season saw a full year of Cassell and Gill. Williams was still with the team, second-year guard Kerry Kittles improved, and the team added second overall pick Keith Van Horn. But this meant the Nets had a lot of guys who needed the ball to be effective, and even though Gill started 81 games, he was fourth on the team in scoring. The Nets would, however, finish 43-39 and make the playoffs, the first time Gill had been to the playoffs since 1995. The Nets would get swept by the Bulls in a series that saw Cassell struggle with a strained groin that only allowed him to play 27 minutes across the 3 games. Even with the additional need for scoring, Gill didn't score much better than he did in the regular season, averaging just over 14 points for this series. Gill's lack of a long-range shot was evident in this series as he didn't attempt a single three-pointer. And for the regular season, Gill averaged about 13.5 points, 5 rebounds, and 2.5 assists per game. The lockout-shortened 1999 season saw Gill play in all 50 games in a season which would begin with Cassell running the offense, but would end with Stephon Marbury as the team's point guard, as he came over in a 3-team trade with Milwaukee and Minnesota on March 11. Gill would not have a lot of offensive success, as he shot below 40% from the field and had his lowest three-point percentage of his career. But he would have one of the most prominent defensive seasons, as he would lead the league in steals, averaging 2.7 per game, including a points, rebounds, assists, steals, quadruple-double, in which he had a career high and record-tying 11 steals on April 3rd versus the Miami Heat. The Nets would have a poor season as injuries affected the team, and they finished 16-34 and missed the playoffs. And on the regular season, Gill averaged just under 12 points, 5 rebounds, and 2.5 assists per game.
Even though Kendall Gill was the steals leader in 99, he wasn't even in the top 10 for Defensive Player of the Year runnings, which is kind of crazy. He led the league in one of the categories for defense, but wasn't even considered. Considering that in 98 and as well as in 2000, he averaged less steals per game, but he was 8th in the running and 10th in the running for both those seasons. Kind of crazy if you ask me.
2000 was Gill's last season averaging double digits, and he would improve his scoring average from the previous year. Gill was switched back to shooting guard to start the season, which he was happy about, but he would eventually be switched back to small forward in early December after struggling to begin this season. And the switch proved to be a good one, as it helped him play much better for the remainder of the year. The Nets still couldn't translate that into overall success as they missed the playoffs with a 31-51 record. But Gill would finish third on the team in scoring, and overall he would put up averages of about 13 points, 3.5 rebounds, and 3 assists per game. The 2001 season was a year of injuries for Gill, as he only played in 31 games. But when he did play, Gill was able to play shooting guard due to a knee injury to Kittles that caused him to miss the entire season. The injuries and Stephon Marbury just not being the right player to lead the Nets led to them finishing 26 and 56 and missed the playoffs. In Gill's shortened season, he averaged about 9 points, 4 rebounds, and 3 assists per game. After 4.5 years with the Nets, Gill signed with Miami as a free agent in 2002. Gill would play in 65 games, starting 49 of them, while also being reunited with his former teammate from a decade prior in Alonzo Mourning. The Heat were an aging team on the tail end of the best era of basketball in franchise history up to that point, and would finish the season with a 36 and 46 record and would not make the playoffs. Gill would have his lowest totals of his career up to that point as well, as he averaged about 5.5 points, 3 rebounds, and 1.5 assists per game. He would also average less than 1 steal for the first and only time of his career. After a year in Miami, Gill signed with the Timberwolves to begin the 03 season, where he would play a bench role but play in all 82 games for the first time since the 1997 season, and the third time in his career overall. Gill would play an important veteran and bench role for a 51 and 31 T-Wolves team that would make the playoffs, a season in which Gill shot a respectable 32% from 3 after 5 seasons of 29% or lower. The Timberwolves would run into the defending champion Lakers in the first round and lose in 6. This would be the last postseason of Gill's career, and it wouldn't be anything too special for him, although he did shoot 50% from 3 over the course of the series, but he only shot 4 threes. For the regular season, Gill averaged about 8.5 points, 3 rebounds, and 2 assists per game. The 2004 season saw Gill on his 4th team in 4 years, as he signed with the Chicago Bulls in the...
Sorry, little fun story about this Chicago Bulls team that Kendall Gill was on. One, it was cool that he eventually got to play for his hometown team. I'm sure that meant a lot to him. And secondly, this Bulls team was a young team. Kendall Gill was brought in as a veteran presence. And I remember Eddie Curry talking about a story one day in practice. Kendall Gill, who is an avid MMA fan as well as practitioner and avid boxer, who has had several professional fights. And Tyson Chandler was messing around in practice one day, and Kendall Gill used his Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu skills and got Tyson Chandler on the ground. I don't know exactly how he got it down, because all Eddie Curry said was it was a weird move. But Kendall Gill got Tyson Chandler down and kept on asking Chandler to tap so he can give up, essentially. But the way that Tyson Chandler was positioned, it didn't allow him to be able to tap. So he was just kind of sitting there in pain for a little bit, I guess. All right, let's get back into it, guys. The video's almost over. Thank you for being with me for this long.
Unfortunately, Gill would not be blessed with the same health he had the previous season, as he missed 26 games due to injury, but would have his highest scoring average since 2000. However, the Bulls were in no position to compete and finished the season at 23 and 59 and missed the playoffs. For the season, Gill would average about 9.5 points, 3.5 rebounds, and 1.5 assists per game. Another year, another team for Kendall Gill, as 2005 saw him in a Milwaukee Bucks uniform. But he would only play from early December to early January for a total of 14 games for a 30 and 52 Bucks team. And for the season, Gill would average about 6 points, 2.5 rebounds, and 2 assists per game in what would be the final season of his career. Kendall Gill seems like a case of untapped potential, as he had all the physical tools and the work ethic to be one of the best, but it just never materialized. It's unfortunate that what should have been the best years of his career were spent in places that he didn't feel valued, and in the case of Seattle and George Karl, places that made him essentially hate the game that he had dedicated his life to. His time in New Jersey had so much potential, and he showed his ability in the beginning, but the team quickly shifted their offensive focus to other players, leaving Gill as an afterthought. One thing that Gill always brought with him was a tenacious defense that served him so well for his entire career, which has him still sitting in the top 50 for all-time steals with 1,519. And his commitment to the upkeep of his body set an indirect example to everyone that he played with. As was evidenced by his early Nets teammates and coaches' statements, Gill was not the individual that the media made him out to be early in his career. And one can only wonder if he would have had more success had it not been for those claims on his character. And also, what could have been different for him if he would have remained the focal point of an offense instead of franchises moving on from him as the number one option early in his tenure. as was the case with Charlotte and New Jersey. So, this has been today's episode on the underrated two-way swingman, Kendall Gill. I hope you enjoyed it, and remember to subscribe for more videos like this one. Speaking of videos like this one, check out the video on the player he was traded back to Charlotte for, or this one on his Nets teammate. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.
Well, my final thoughts on this. Kendall Gill was a very talented basketball player that was highly sought after for his defensive prowess. I mean, the fact that he got moved to play an entirely new position in small forward just showed how good of a defender he was and how many people that he could slow down or even stop. You know, so he would have to guard the 2, 3, and 4 spots at times. And part of the reason why I feel that Kendall Gill's career should get a little bit more light shown on it, and why I feel he's underlooked by fans nowadays, is because of the position that he played for the majority of his career, shooting guard. I mean, just listen to this brief list of shooting guards who also played during the 90s. You got the player on the left over here, Hersey Hawkins. You got Clyde Drexler, Reggie Miller, Mitch Richmond, Joe Dumars, Latrell Sprewell, Allen Houston, John Starks, and then Kobe Bryant came into the league in 96 as well. And then you also got two players who unfortunately their careers got cut short because of them passing, and Drazen Petrovic as well as Reggie Lewis. This officially is the end of my video. Thank you guys for lasting this long. I didn't intend for it to be this long, but thank you anyways for sticking around. If you like this content, like, share, and subscribe. And for now, JK Reacts, signing out. Thank you guys.